I want to talk a little bit about the hubris of artists in Hollywood. And the reason I say Hollywood specifically is I don't disagree with the idea that art and commerce are necessarily mutually exclusive, but I do believe that a lot of people in Hollywood seem to ignore the fact that the industry that they're in requires audiences to actually show up so that they can get paid and then make their next movie, right? So what I'm talking about here is Olivia Wilde. If you don't know, she played 13 in House, and she's directed a couple of movies over the last couple of years that were not so successful. They're below to mid-level box office films that made a little bit of their money back but didn't necessarily profit. But she was at a recent film festival, and she said this. She said, "When you conflate filmmaking or acting with large-scale acceptance, you immediately cut off every opportunity to do any risky work. So it was important to me to never become overly focused on being accepted or loved." Now, the reason I take an issue with that is that nowadays, increasingly, these movies are made for higher and higher budgets. They cost extremely large amounts of money. And then what happens is the directors get mad when the studios either interfere with the production or they get mad because the audience doesn't show up, despite the fact that they're telling increasingly niche stories that focus on things like identity politics, or at the very least, do not frame the stories in a way that layer those types of things into the story in a way that's actually palatable for everybody watching. Now, I'm perfectly fine if you want to make low-budget films like that, with your friends, or if you want to make them independently and finance them yourself. But what they're asking of the audience here is they're asking twofold. They're asking both the studios for the money to make it, and then they're asking for the audience to either come out and watch something they're not interested in, or telling the audience altogether, "I don't care." Well, I don't know how it works in your industry. I'm saying to you, the viewer, but most of the time, to have a job that pays you money, you have to be able to provide something of value to make your employment necessary.
Yeah, good or a service.
Yeah, right? Like right now, I'm boring the rest of you watching. All of you watching right now are bored out of your mind, but you're still watching. So my hope is that we are offering you something of value, which kind of makes this employment necessary. Do you guys feel like this is there any other industry that you can think of that has such a proposition where you don't have to actually focus on what the audience wants?
Sports in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I'm saying any industry. Can you think of any corollary?
Well, okay, so
it'd probably be sports.
It depends.
No, because that requires. I mean, in sports, being good at your job means people show up to watch.
But your question was, do you focus on the audience?
Yeah.
Watching it?
Okay. Well, I mean, no. Being good at your job means the audience will come. That's a natural byproduct.
Yeah, but it's like also just an intrinsic property of professional sports that the audience will just come.
No, look, when you're doing creative things, and it is inherently part of being creative that you're doing things that people haven't experienced or seen or done. If you're being actually creative, right? So like if you're writing music, there's a part of you that is going to want to have things that people are familiar with, maybe song structures or some melodies and stuff. But if it's too familiar, people are just going to say, "Oh, that's ripping it off." Yes. But when it comes to anything that's revolutionary, nobody knew that they wanted the iPhone when the iPhone came out. In 2007, no one had any idea that they wanted that. Now, almost 20 years later now, everyone has. If it's not an iPhone, it's a copy of an iPhone. It performs the same function, that does the same thing in a very, very similar way. There were smartphones before the iPhone. Yeah. But it is not the same. The way that Apple made the iPhone function, or the way they brought it to market, it was totally new to people, and they were like, "This is something that I need," and they had no idea that they wanted it.
Well, they took the the whole Apple, Apple's always been they take very detailed attention to everything down to the inside of the packaging, how you open that box, that first unboxing experience. So it's
People didn't. But the point to answer his question,
they didn't do
It's
anything
not
like that
it was.
before.
It's not like you were like, oh, I'm trying to satisfy a customer base. The customer base wasn't there. They created the customer base by making the iPhone.
I think the issue in Hollywood, though, is like a director like James Cameron can be like, I'm going to make you something that you didn't know you wanted, and you're going to realize afterwards that you wanted it. But I think all of them either don't think about it at all, or they all think that they have the ability to be a James Cameron without realizing that the studio is going to spend an inordinate amount of money on somebody that just can't deliver on that. They can't deliver the next iPhone every time a movie comes out. So what you're supposed to do is find the things that work and tell stories that you know will actually resonate with the audience. Theoretically, Marvel had the ability to print money forever if they continued telling the same hero's journey along with the, give each new star a trilogy, be respectful of the source material and the characters. Do those basic steps, and you could have printed money as long as you wanted. If you had done the same thing with Star Wars, if you had actually done the sequel trilogy in a respectful way, and not screwed it up and not lampooned it with what they did with The Last Jedi, which completely threw off the entire process. And I'm not even talking about the film itself. I'm saying like creating a trilogy that had no point or no plan, right? Like you had the license to print money with a little bit of forethought, strong investment, and respect to the material. And increasingly, they either don't care because they want to focus on whatever message they want to deliver in the film, or they think they're better than they are.
Yeah, I think it's that. Like, it's just these people have been lauded for their entire lives, and like their asses have been kissed at every turn they take. So like, at a certain point, that's going to start to mess with your head. There's no way you can't, like, you're a normal person when that happens.
She also talks about women that are not trying to shatter the glass ceiling, are not trying hard enough. I feel bad for a lot of
women that are not trying to shatter the glass ceiling are the best women.
Well, and they're not going to get glass shards in their head, which is always better too. But
and they're going to have better relationships with their boyfriends.
I feel bad a lot of times for a lot of women in Hollywood that are not the ideologues. Like, again, you guys know if you've watched this show for any length of time, I watch a lot of old network television, and there have been exceptionally, talented women that have worked as directors and screenwriters and producers in that medium for decades, and it never had to become some type of socio-political statement that they worked there. They had to work hard, and ironically enough, the harder you work without expecting anything in return, the more likely you are to be respected by your peers, no matter what gender they are.
Yeah.
But when you do actually push everything as some type of feminist message of empowerment, even if they don't resent you for that, it kind of sets you up in a place where nobody's going to be all that upset if you fail because you were looking to be lauded in the first place, when most people don't expect that from their careers.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like, I just find it really, really weird that there's like this self-importance attached to the identities that are done in Hollywood these days, because to me, the best artists tend to be the ones who put the art first and foremost, and it's less of a focus. They talk about how now they don't hire directors, they cast directors, meaning that they're not hired because they're good at their job. Ostensibly, if you look at a lot of Marvel directors, they have 1, maybe 2 credits to their name, but they're hired because they fit into the right category that they're looking to hire. Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's stupid.
And Marvel is notorious for this
failing.
because Marvel is a giant machine that at one time used to move very, very freely, right? It moved in free motion, and it churned out movie after movie after movie. They have had plenty of really big directors work on their franchises, but in general, a lot of them, like when the directors who came in to do Black Widow said, "Oh, I can't wait to do the action films," they go, "Don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. Like, you just do the rest of this stuff," because their opinion doesn't really matter. Like, they're literally making factory line, corporate art that doesn't matter, so they can put anybody they want in that role, or say a Nia DaCosta who worked with Marvel. I believe that was the Marvels. She did the Candyman movie, and before the Candyman reboot, not the original, and like one other thing besides that, and you're like, where in the world do you enter any type of industry that's going to put $200 million in your hand and say, go make something, if you don't have $200 million worth of experience to your name?
That's like that lady who's she did documentaries or feminist doing documentaries.
The one who's
stuff.
doing the Ray movie. That's,
Yeah,
I don't
no.
even know if that's going to end up coming out right now. It would be nice for them to stop announcing movies and then canceling.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Did you see that Hot Ones sold for like $83 million?
That's the show where like they like
The
talk
wings.
and
The
eat
show with
hot
hot-
wings, right?
Hot questions and even
See, but
hotter
the-
wings.
The point is, you can't sell that show for $83 million if there isn't like a level of success attached to it beforehand.
Yes.
It has to prove that
Well,
it's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy's a good. He's a good interviewer.
He is. He's
Yeah,
a
he's
very good,
legitimately like
yeah.
it's a lot of people would say that he might be one of the best people doing interviews right now in
Yeah,
those
that's
industries.
fair.
One of the clips we reference here a lot is he did a really great interview with Matt Damon, where he got
Matt
into
Damon.
the nitty gritty about
Matt
what it's
Damon.
like to work behind the scenes in Hollywood and how movies make their money and stuff like that. And look, they wouldn't do that at Variety because they just ask him how gay is your next movie.
Yeah.
and then they would. That's what they do. There's that guy at Variety who just every time
How
a movie
gay
comes
is
out,
it?
they're like, so how gay is this movie? And look, there's
Well, what's the correct the correct answer? Is it like very
Super gay.
yes.
The
That's
gayest.
because I would think that would be a bad thing.
The funny thing is
It
like
never works for him.
I don't even
Never
think that
works.
that's necessarily like a bad question to ask if you work for Out Magazine or
Yeah.
you
Well,
work
yeah,
for any
fair.
of these, like, right? Like, it's like, but if you're talking to a general trade publication whose job it is to talk about business goings on or new releases in Hollywood, then the best part is it ends up being like it backfires on them because that's the stuff that gets clipped and put
Yes.
up on social media
To me,
and everybody hates it.
To me, the conversation should go something like this: how gay is your new movie? Very gay. Then why are you putting it out, you idiot? Like that makes sense. That's how it would make sense to me.
Yeah. But the thing is like I actually have the.
Why didn't you make it better?
I'm of the opinion that most of these like industry interviewers actually hate these people because they ask them questions that they know are going to get clipped and then destroy interest in their films.
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like. Like they did that for like all of the most recent Marvel stuff and all of these other movies, and you're like, what if you just asked them about like what was your inspiration? And then if they say that, you can include it. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to ignore that. I'm saying like don't lead them into the question with something.
But
like
how
that.
much of it, like, do you think that's actually just like them engagement farming because they know people are going to lose their minds about it online, and that's the only way people are going to know their names?
I mean, I that is a reasonable assumption, but
'Cause-
at the same time, it's kind of the law of diminishing returns. Like that can only work for so long.
No, I get it, but it's the law of diminishing returns. Like, but then again, these are written journalists. Like that's a dead industry.
A lot of times these are like interviewers on red carpets. So what it is they're clips that go viral.
Oh, I see.
So it's a little bit different. There's a 20 there, Phil.
20.
Gordon Shumway.
Gordon Shumway. Oh, this was a few. No, wait. I don't see it.
It says Olivia Wilde has
Oh, here it
foolishly.
is. Okay,
you got it.
Gordon Shumway says Olivia Wilde has foolishly tried to shatter the glass ceiling while not having the talent. Slammed her face into said ceiling multiple times, knocked herself stupid, and is obviously suffering PTSD.
Look,
Gordon.
I
There you
will.
go.
Look, I can't speak to her as a director. She doesn't make the movies that I'm going to go see anyways. That's fair. I will always love her as 13 in house. I think that
That
is
was her
one
name.
Of, her character's name is Remy, but they call her 13.
Okay.
I will always love her in that role. I think she's fantastic in that role, and yeah, I will not. I'm only speaking as a director, and my main point is that it is increasingly obvious to me now that Hollywood has realized that it is untenable to keep going at the pace they are with releases. One of the reasons why Captain America 4 has gone through 9 gazillion reshoots and is going to cost $10 zillion to make is because it was made at a time when they were trying to promote their continuous anti-Trump sentiment. The election changed things. There is a pendulum swing going the other way.
Amen.
And they are now trying to basically make a Franken movie that turns it into something that it wasn't from the very beginning because they have to reshoot, change things. A lot of people think they did the same thing with the Marvels. Like, you can see the bare bones layers of feminist ideology and evil man syndrome in that movie. And literally through the point of you watch scenes in that movie and very clear ADR shows up where it shows the back of his head and he starts talking and the voice sounds a little bit different. stuff was changed. They understand that the sentiment is changing, and what these studios need to start doing is that if over a budget of a certain amount, or if we're getting into the $100 million territory, you should have a movie that speaks to that level of success in your repertoire beforehand, or a bunch of stuff that leads up to it that shows great audience scores, meaning that you're not making $100 million movies for critics. You're making $100 million movies for audiences. You need to make your money back. I'm not talking about whether the critics like it or not. I'm saying that do they have a modicum of success, a certain amount of success delivering to the audiences, and then you have to rely on him and the writers to pull it together. You cannot give $100 million movies to people who have done one or two things. You cannot give $100 million movies to people who have written one thing before, or like a short film. You have to give it to people who value the audiences and value the money they bring in. Because look, Tom Cruise says it every time he releases a movie. He shows up before the movie, says, "I am so grateful for all of you guys to come out and watch." Like, do I think he's honest? I have no idea. He could be a sociopath for all I know, but he's trying, and I'll take a kindly worded lie from him, because I'm not looking to be his best friend. I'm looking for a solid return on my ridiculously expensive investment of $8 zillion to go to the theaters.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.